Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're going to talk about a feeling that I think a lot of us have either experienced firsthand.
Or we've watched someone we love kind of drown in it.
Yeah, exactly. And we want to be really clear up front. It's not just being tired.
Right. It's not just burnout.
No. It is a very specific, incredibly heavy sensation that the research we're looking at today calls the blur.
It's a very visceral term, isn't it? The blur. It perfectly captures that total loss of definition.
It really does. And I want to make sure we're specific about what we're actually talking about here, because I don't want to conflate this with, just having a bad week at work.
Sure.
We are digging into extreme symptoms today. We're talking about sleeping 16, maybe 17 hours a day, a crushing loss of interest in, well, everything.
Yeah, it's that state where reality just sort of softens and the edges fade out.
Where the days bleed into the nights and you can't really tell where your body stops and the couch starts.
Exactly. But here's the problem, and I think this is really where we have to start our deep dive. If you tell your boss or your parents or even your close friends that you're sleeping 17 hours a day and you literally cannot get off the couch.
What's the immediate label you get slapped with?
Oh, it's instantaneous laziness.
Right. People say, you just need to try harder. Where is your willpower?
It gets viewed as a character flaw. Society looks at that kind of immobility and they see a moral failure. They see someone who has just given up.
But our mission today for you listening is to look at a multidisciplinary stack of research that completely dismantles that judgment.
Completely.
We've got root analysis, internal family systems, somatic therapy with polyvagal theory, and even some cognitive tools like CBT and NLP.
It's a heavy stack.
It is, but we need it because we are not looking at laziness. We are looking at what the source material calls the architecture of restoration.
And that is the absolute key reframe right there. We have to stop looking at this state as a broken person failing to function and start looking at it as a functional collapse. The system hasn't failed because it's broken. It is shut down because it is actively trying to survive.
That is a massive shift in perspective, though. Shut down to survive. It sounds kind of contradictory on the surface.
It does, but think of it like a computer. If the internal temperature gets way too hot, what does the motherboard do?
It just kills the power.
Right. It doesn't ask for permission. It shuts down immediately to save the hardware from literally melting. Humans do the exact same thing.
Okay, so to understand this human shutdown, we're going to pull from those sources we mentioned. We'll start with why the system is shutting down, then look at the different parts of our personality with IFS.
Then the nervous system hardware.
Yes. And finally, how to actually wake the system back up safely.
And we really have to go in that specific order. Because if you try to wake up the machine before you understand why it turned off in the first place, you're just going to blow the fuse all over again.
So let's start with the why. The material uses this 5 whys technique, which is usually a business tool, right? Like, why did the factory line stop?
Exactly. But when you apply it to the human psyche, it becomes this incredibly deep archaeological dig.
So let's play this out. The presenting symptom is this 16-hour sleep cycle, the blur. So why, number one, why is the person sleeping so much?
The knee-jerk answer is usually, oh, because they're depressed, or they just like sleep.
But those are surface answers.
They are. The functional answer is energy economy. The system is in a state of collapse to prevent any further energy expenditure. The body has basically run the numbers and decided that being awake is simply too expensive.
Okay, that makes sense. It's extreme budgeting. But that leads us directly to why, number two. Why is the system trying to stop spending energy? Why is being awake too expensive?
Because the system perceives the environment. And that could be the external world of jobs and bills, or the internal world of shame and unresolved grief as fundamentally unsafe or overwhelmingly demanding.
It's a threat response.
It is. It's not that you don't want to do things, it's that your system feels genuinely unsafe doing them.
Okay, but I can hear the listener arguing with us right now. They're saying, my life isn't unsafe. I have a job. I have an apartment. Why does my brain think I'm in mortal danger?
And that brings us to why number 3. Why does the world feel so unsafe? This is where we have to look at your history.
Right.
The research suggests that for people in the blur, past attempts to engage with life like trying to seek help, trying to find purpose, or being vulnerable, they resulted in failure, rejection, or just absolute exhaustion.
It's the hot stove effect.
Yes.
If you touch a hot stove 5 times and get burned every single time, eventually your hand is just going to refuse to move, no matter how much you mentally tell yourself you want to touch it.
Precisely. And why number 4 asks, why did those attempts fail?
This is the tragic part, but often the answer is that the individual lacked the internal resources or the external support to actually process the emotional weight they were carrying.
They were trying to lift a car without a jack. Exactly. Which brings us to the very bottom of the well. Why number 5?
The root?
The root. The source material identifies this as a fundamental loss of agency and connection.
Wow.
The self, the very core of who you are, has retreated so deeply to protect itself from pain that it has effectively lost the map back to the surface.
Lost the map back to the surface.
And
But that actually explains the feeling of the blur perfectly. You aren't seeing clearly because you're buried under 10 layers of concrete protection.
you're in a bunker. And you don't
Huh.
leave a bomb bunker just because someone outside is yelling at you to hustle.
So let's talk about who is actually running that bunker. This is where we get into internal family systems, or IFS.
One of my favorite frameworks.
Me too, because it stops looking at us as one monolithic person and starts looking at us as a system of parts, like a crew on a ship.
Right. And in this specific case, the crew is basically in a lockdown protocol. IFS suggests that the person sleeping 17 hours isn't broken. They are being governed by very tired, very extreme protectors.
Let's meet these protectors, because I think everyone listening will recognize them instantly. Who is the main character when you're in the blur?
The primary player is a manager part that the text calls the blanket.
The blanket. It sounds cozy, but I have a feeling it's not just about warmth.
It's about suffocation, but for a benevolent reason.
Oh,
The blanket is the part of you that initiates the sleep. It literally fogs the glass. And here is the fascinating insight into its logic.
what's the logic?
The blanket believes, if you can't see your life clearly, it can't hurt you.
Wow. So the numbing isn't a side effect of the depression. The numbing is the actual goal.
Precisely. Its job is anesthesia. It's trying to shield you from the sharpness of despair. Because if everything is blurry, the sharp edges can't cut you.
But wait, usually when I'm in a terrible slump, I don't just feel numb, I feel incredibly guilty. I have this really aggressive voice in my head screaming, "Get up, you loser, you're wasting your entire life." Who is that guy?
That would be the critic. And here is the incredibly dangerous dynamic that happens in this specific state. The critic thinks it can shame you into moving. It genuinely thinks if it yells loud enough, you'll finally get off the couch.
But it doesn't work.
No, it massively backfires. The critic screams at you, which causes internal pain. The blanket sees that pain and says, oh no, we need more protection. So it adds another layer of sleep.
So the critic attacks you, which burns energy, which makes the blanket numb you even harder to save energy. It's a closed loop.
It is a war of attrition inside your own head. And the ultimate tragedy is that they're both fighting to protect the exact same thing.
The exile.
Yes, the exile.
Yeah.
This is the part deep, deep down. It's the very young, wounded part of you that feels completely abandoned. The blanket keeps you asleep specifically to ensure the exile never has to face the harsh world alone again. They are guarding the dungeon door.
Okay, so if you're listening to this and you realize, oh my God, I have a blanket and a critic fighting a war in my head right now, what do you do? Because the instinct is to side with the critic, right? Set 10 alarms, chug 3 coffees, and force yourself to function.
And that is exactly what you should not do. If
Yeah.
you try to rip the blanket off by force, it will just pull tighter. You cannot fight a protector that believes it has been keeping you alive for the last 10 years.
So what's the move? If I can't fight it, do I just surrender to the sleep forever?
No. The healing path here is super counterintuitive. You negotiate with it, you thank the blanket.
Hang on, you want me to thank the thing that is ruining my life? The thing keeping me in bed 17 hours a day?
Yes.
Hey.
Because it didn't start doing this to ruin your life. It started doing this to save it. You have to acknowledge its intent. You literally say, I see that you are trying to protect me. Thank you for your service.
That feels really hard to do, but I guess it disarms the conflict.
It immediately lowers the defenses. Once the blanket feels seen and appreciated, you can ask it to step back, just an inch. You don't say, leave forever. You just ask, can you give me 5 minutes of clarity today?
It's a much more gentle approach than the standard boot camp mentality.
It has to be. Force causes resistance. Acceptance causes relaxation.
Speaking of relaxation, or the total lack of it, we really need to switch gears here. We've talked about the software, the mental parts, but we have to talk about the hardware, the body.
Yes, absolutely.
Because you can have all the psychological insights in the world, but if your nervous system is offline, you aren't going anywhere.
Exactly. This is where we bring in somatic therapy and polyvagal theory. The text describes the blur not as resting, but as a dorsal vagal state.
Dorsal vagal. Let's break that down for the listener. What does that actually feel like in the body?
It is the biological shutdown response. Evolutionarily speaking, it's the oldest trick in the book. Think of a reptile playing dead, or a mouse that just goes completely limp in the cat's mouth.
So it's a biological freeze.
Yes. The physical signs are silence, excessive sleep, really heavy limbs, and that blurred reality. These are signs of immobilization. And the source uses a great metaphor here to explain it. The fuse box.
I really like this analogy. Unpack it for us.
Imagine your house. You turn on the microwave, the air conditioning, the hairdryer, and the vacuum cleaner all at the exact same time. What happens?
Pop. The fuse blows and everything goes dark.
Right. And why does the fuse blow?
To save the house from burning down.
Exactly. The system cuts the power to save the wiring. That is precisely what has happened to individuals in the blur. The nervous system has pulled the fuse to save the engine.
This is so important because I think we've all had that really well-meaning friend. You know the one. You tell them you're depressed and they say, hey, just come to the gym with me. You need endorphins. Let's do some high-intensity interval training.
That is the gym fallacy. And frankly, for this specific group of people, that advice is downright dangerous.
Dangerous. How so?
When you are in a blown fuse state, a dorsal vagal shutdown, your body perceives high energy demands as a literal threat. If you try to sprint on a broken leg, you don't get stronger. You shatter the bone.
Wow.
If you force a shutdown body into high-intensity stress, you drive it even deeper into the cave.
You can't CrossFit your way out of a coma. So if we can't go to the gym, what do we actually do? How do we flip the fuse back on without blowing it again?
You have to start with tiny, non-threatening sensory inputs. We call these somatic fixes. And they're going to sound almost too simple to work.
Let's hear them.
The first is titration. In chemistry, that means adding one drop at a time. In this context, it means simply noticing the body's weight on the bed.
That's it. Just feeling the bed.
That's it. You aren't trying to fix your career. You aren't trying to map out your future. You are just feeling gravity. You tell yourself, I am here. The mattress is holding me. It grounds the mind in the present physical reality without making any demands on the system.
Okay, I can do that. Even deep in the blur, you can feel gravity. What's the next one?
Safe touch. This one is incredibly powerful. You simply place a hand on your own chest, right over your heart.
Why does that work? It feels a little woo-woo to some people, I'm sure.
It does, but it's actually purely biological.
Yeah.
It signals to the reptilian brain, the ancient part running the shutdown, that there is no predator currently attacking your chest. A predator doesn't gently hold your heart.
Right.
It's a tactile signal of safety that bypasses the thinking brain entirely.
Okay, so we're basically hacking the reptile brain.
Exactly. And the third fix is biological completion. When animals freeze in the wild to avoid a predator, once the danger actually passes, they shake. Have you ever seen a dog shake off stress after a loud noise?
Oh yeah, they do that weird full body wiggle.
Right, that physically discharges the trapped energy. Humans usually don't do that. We stay frozen, so to help the human body transition out of freeze, we can use humming.
Humming, like just humming a tune.
Low, deep humming, or long, focused exhales. The physical vibration of humming actually stimulates the vagus nerve, which runs right through the vocal cords. It is a mechanical way to tell the body, we're coming back online, it is safe to make sound again.
That is wild. So you hum to literally tell your nervous system that the tiger is finally gone.
Correct. You have to convince the physical body that the war is over before you can start rebuilding the city.
So let's talk about rebuilding the city. We've got the internal parts negotiating. We've got the fuse box slowly being repaired with humming and safe touch. Now we look at the architecture of the mind itself. The source points to cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT, and neurolinguistic programming, NLP.
Right. But again, scale is everything here. We aren't trying to build a skyscraper on day one. We're trying to lay one single brick.
The text mentions behavioral activation, which sounds a lot like just do it, but I know it's a lot more nuanced than that.
It's more like just do a tiny little bit of it. We're talking about micro steps here. We are not aiming for finding your life's grand purpose today. We are aiming for sitting up in bed for 5 minutes.
5 minutes. That's the bar.
That is the bar. And here is the crucial part of CBT that most people completely miss. You must celebrate the effort of the nervous system, not the outcome.
What does that actually look like in practice?
If you sit up and you feel absolutely terrible and you want to cry and you lie back down after only 3 minutes, you still celebrate. You literally say, good job, nervous system. You tried.
Wow.
You are retraining the brain to reward the attempted engagement. Because if you only reward yourself when you finally feel happy, you will never get there.
That is a massive distinction. You're rewarding the glimmers of effort. not the final result. Now let's talk about NLP. This stuff always feels a bit like hacking the brain's operating system to me.
It really is. And one of the most powerful NLP tools for the blur is called reframing history.
This seems huge, because if you've spent the last 10 years sleeping 16 hours a day, the narrative playing on a loop in your head is usually, I wasted my life. I am trash.
Which brings massive shame, which triggers the blanket protector, and you're right back to sleep. The cycle just continues. NLP asks us to deliberately reframe this time. It wasn't wasted time. It was deep hibernation.
Hibernation, I really like that. It implies that there was a purpose to it.
It implies preservation. Your brain was preserving what was left of you. It's a brilliant survival strategy. Reframing it that way removes the shame. You weren't rotting away. You were just waiting for a very long winter to end.
The source also mentions a technique called submodalities. That's a bit of a $10 word. What does that mean?
It's much simpler than it sounds. In NLP, we treat memories kind of like movies playing in a mental theater. When you're severely depressed, how do your memories typically look to you?
Gray, dark, blurry,
Yeah.
far away.
Exactly. Those are the submodalities, the brightness, the focus, the color saturation. We can actually consciously practice adjusting those knobs. You imagine a memory, maybe a time you felt just okay, and you mentally try to turn up the brightness just a little bit or sharpen the focus.
So you're basically grabbing the remote control of your own brain.
You're practicing bringing color back to the mental theater, even if it's just for 1 second. It exercises the specific neural pathways responsible for vividness.
There's one more NLP tool mentioned in the outline that we can't skip. Parts integration, or the visual squash technique.
Ah, yes, the visual squash.
Because there's this massive conflict, right? The part that desperately wants to live and the part that desperately wants to hide. How do you resolve that?
The visual squash is a beautiful technique where you literally visualize one part in your left hand, let's say the part that wants to live, and the part that wants to hide in your right hand. You acknowledge both their values. They both want to keep you safe in different ways. And you slowly bring your hands together, allowing those images to integrate into a new, single, cooperative part.
It's literally physically bringing the divided mind back together.
That's powerful. We've covered a lot of ground here today, but I want to get really practical for a second for the listener. Let's say someone listening is thinking, okay, this is me.
Yeah.
I am in the blur right now. I need professional help.
This brings us to the action plan, and it comes with a massive warning label.
The danger of standard advice.
Yes. If you walk into a standard therapist's office or you hire a general life coach and they start throwing accountability strategies at you or standard talk therapy about your childhood trauma, it might actually make you significantly worse.
Because you literally don't have an intact fuse box for it yet.
Exactly. You cannot process deep trauma if you aren't even safe in your own body. You need a trauma-informed approach.
So what are the specific keywords? If I'm scrolling through a directory of therapists online, what am I looking for? You are looking for specialists in IFS, which is internal family systems, or SE, somatic experiencing, or sensorimotor psychotherapy. These are modalities that actually understand nervous system shutdown. They work bottom up, meaning body to brain, not top down.
And the source material actually gives a really specific script, an exact way to ask for help so you don't end up with the wrong kind of therapy. I think this is worth reading verbatim for the listeners.
It definitely is. When you contact a professional, you tell them this: I'm in a functional freeze or a dorsal shutdown. I need help regulating my nervous system before we do talk therapy.
Before we do talk therapy, that is a hard boundary.
It protects you.
Yeah.
It tells the clinician right up front, I need biological safety right now, not excavation.
And just briefly, we should mention the medical side of this too. We aren't doctors, obviously, but the source does touch on this.
Yes, it's important. Chronic 16-hour sleep cycles over long periods often involve severe neurochemical depletion. The chemical tank isn't just low, it's completely dusted. A psychiatrist can help provide a neurochemical floor.
Often through medication.
Right. And it's not about just taking happy pills. It's about creating a biological foundation that is stable enough for you to actually do the somatic and psychological work.
Okay, let's bring this all together. We started with the blur, that incredibly heavy, foggy existence. We stripped away the toxic label of laziness and saw it for what it truly is: a functional collapse, a defensive architecture built entirely to protect a wounded core.
We met the blanket and realized it's just a very tired protector, not a villain. We learned about the blown fuse box, the dorsal vagal shutdown, and why we need to hum and feel the mattress rather than force ourselves to run a marathon.
And we talked about rebuilding the mind through tiny micro steps and reframing the last few years not as a failure, but as a necessary hibernation.
It is a journey from pure survival back to living. It's moving from keeping the lights off to save power to slowly, gently dimming them up again.
Before we sign off today, I want to leave you with one final provocative thought from the research that really stuck with me. We were just talking about hibernation.
Yes, this is what I find the most hopeful part of all of this.
Because hibernation isn't death.
No, it's not. If you look at nature, hibernation is the ultimate preservation of energy. Think about it. If your brain has spent the last 10 years preserving what was left of your core self with such intense focus, guarding it like a dragon guarding gold, what kind of potential energy has been stored up in there?
That is a shivering thought.
You aren't empty.
Yeah.
You are stored. You are pressurized. And when that energy is finally released, when safety is actually established, the potential for life, for creativity, for deep connection, it might be massive. You haven't lost 10 years. You've just been charging the battery for a very big second act.
You've been charging the battery. I really hope that lands for anyone listening out there who feels like they're running on empty right now. Thank you for walking us through this architecture today.
My absolute pleasure.
And to you listening, thanks for diving deep with us. Be really gentle with that fuse box of yours. We'll see you next time.